Radagon of the Golden Order. He has a very aggressive style to his fight, and by now we've all seen and heard the many stories that's of the mysteries that is Radagon. But this begs the question, was he always like this? While I'm not any sort of expert when it comes to fighting, I believe that a boss design, specifically their attack patterns, can tell a lot about a character without giving so much away. When Elden Ring first released, those who followed the lore knew that there was so much mystery that surrounded Radagon. From Software did a great job dropping hints here and there about the history of Radagon, but very little about his personality. We first hear from Muriel, located in the Church of Vows, that there were two wars between the Golden Order and Carian royals, which ended in a marriage between Radagon and Renalla, Queen of the Full Moon. He would soon leave Renalla when Godfrey was, quote, hounded from the lands between, end quote, and after his departure from Lucaria and abandoning Renalla, Radagon would later be found in the royal capital and become the second king consort to Queen Marika the Eternal. Now it is worth mentioning that when Radagon abandoned Renalla, he broke her heart. As a result of this broken heart, and mourning the loss of her husband, the sorcerers at the Academy of Lucaria saw this as a weakness and did not see the Carian royal that is Renalla as a champion. Ultimately, the sorcerers would take control of the Academy back from the Carian royalty, and as a result, Renalla would be locked away in the Academy library, and it was there that she would slowly descend into madness. I'm going to look to Fat Brett, who is a fellow content creator, who did a video on Radagon called Radagon, a Deconstruction of Villainy, which is where some of my ideas were inspired from. If you've not heard of Fat Brett, I advise you to go watch his content, as I find he does a fantastic job breaking down characters and other video games. I will link his video and the channel for you to see for yourself in the description. Not long after he left Renalla, Radagon delved deeper into the Golden Order fundamentalism. And to quote Fat Brett on the ideology of the Golden Order fundamentalism, quote, "It is the academic study of the Golden Order. This is in direct contrast of blind worship that most citizens engage in. It is an attempt to rationally or scientifically break down the Golden Order down to its most fundamental parts." End quote. This is rather an interesting point because during his marriage to Renalla, Radagon studied both Golden Order incantations and sorcery. One could make the argument that he was the perfect balance of knowledge, seeing that he understood how both sources of magic worked. He wielded Golden Order incantations so well that it wouldn't be surprising if he became an expert in sorcery. Now, back to fundamentalism. Brett discusses the ideals of Golden Order fundamentalism seen in the law of regression incantation. The incantation reads, "The fundamentalists describe the Golden Order through powers of regression and causality. Regression is the pull of meaning, that all things yearn to converge." I think Fat Brett does a great job explaining this concept. To put simply, the world of Elden Ring started out with something called the One Great, which, according to Hyetta, quote, "all there is came from one great. Then came fractures and births and souls. But the greater will made a mistake. Torment, despair, affliction, every sin, every curse. Everyone born of the mistake. And so, what was borrowed must be returned. Melt it all away with yellow chaos flame until all is one again." Now, granted, she is referencing becoming the Lord of Frenzy Flame, which is the ultimate goal of the Frenzy Flame, is to burn everything until there is nothing. But you get the point. All things will converge back to its normal form. In this case, it would be the Great One. Now, Brett does a very simple way of explaining the law of causality. Quote, "It is the law of cause and effect, of action and reaction. When you take action A, it causes action B, and then action B causes action C, and so on." End quote. Remember when I told you earlier about how the sorcerers took control of the academy? Well, this is an example of the law of causality. With Radagon leaving, this led to Renalla having a broken heart, which led to the sorcerers uprising, and so on. Fat Brett does use this as an example to explain the law of causality in his video, Radagon and Deconstruction of Villainy. Now that we kind of understand the ideals Radagon would have later in his life, let's look at the relationship he had with Marika, the Eternal. For the longest time, it seemed the two managed to coexist to some degree. We don't know when exactly Radagon arrived, but we do know that the two eventually met with conflict towards the end of their relationship. Now, it should be mentioned that the two are in fact one and the same. Radagon is Marika, and Marika is Radagon, but the two are separate. They don't share the same ideals or thoughts, which is even more interesting. Once again, looking back to Brett's video, he points out that Marika wanted to have a deeper understanding of the Golden Order, whereas Radagon, in an effort to make himself more perfect, did the same, but the results were different. Radagon became a deeper, loyal follower of the Golden Order, whereas Marika did not. After all, she was the one responsible for shattering the Elden Ring. Melina repeats the echoes of Marika in the Queen's bedchamber after our fight with Morgoth. Quote, O Radagon, leal hound of the Golden Order, thou art yet to become me, thou art yet to become a god. Let us be shattered both, mine other self. End quote. I think one of the reasons why this is shown to us in the Queen's bedchamber is because the conversation had to have happened in private. There must have been some point in time where Marika felt the need to not only call Radagon a loyal dog, but to more or less remind him of his place when he seemingly oversteps his bounds, much like one does with a dog. Marika shattered the Elden Ring because her faith in the Golden Order and maybe even the Greater Will was shattered. Pun intended, of course. But Radagon attempted to repair it, but he failed, which is what we see in the opening cutscene. This to me symbolizes the events that occur for the rest of the game. When something is broken, there is little to be done that can fix it. In this case, by Marika shattering the Elden Ring, her children dogpiled the Elden Ring and took shards for themselves. Not much can be fixed from that, so Radagon does what he can to fix what is already there, this broken husk of power, and to ensure that no one else can wield it, he seals off the Elden Ring. And the result of this attempted repair is what we see when we enter the boss room. When we enter the boss room, we see the transformation take place. There is a crucified Marika hanging in the center of the room, held up by an arc and pierced by divine punishment. The arc shatters and Marika's body falls down, and it slowly transforms into a broken Radagon of the Golden Order. Except Radagon is different. He is sealing, holding on to, the Elden Ring itself. As Brett points out in his video, he has become a god himself. Thus, going back to the words that Marika said, really shoving it in her face, really. Radagon fights with such aggression that it feels like desperation, and why not? He sees someone come into the Erd Tree, a Tarnished no less, who has fought at the very least a couple of Shardbearers, Morgoth, killed the last of the Fire Giants, defeated Malekith, acquired the Rune of Death, and defeated Godfrey. These are no small feats, to say the least, and to take it further, Radagon knows our intentions to kill a god, and to become the new power of the land. Whether he knows it or not, his master, the Greater Will, has betrayed and abandoned him, leaving the lands between to be taken over by a lowly Tarnished. Now, in an effort to draw more attention to Brett's video, I do want to mention that he himself actually brings up why Radagon fights the way that he does with much more vigor, that he is the last standing guard that is left to protect the universe, more or less. And you're probably wondering, what do you mean protect the universe? This is the part where I tell you, go watch his video fully and then you'll understand. Now back to the video. And so, it is with desperation that Radagon swings the hammer that destroyed his precious order, but he ultimately fails to prevent its complete eradication. Finally, there is a bit of imagery and symbolism in Radagon's death. In the cutscene, we see the Elden Beast push Radagon's corpse into the ground and pull out a sword seemingly made of skin. The Sacred Relic Sword, as it's called, is believed to be made of Radagon and Marika's body. This speaks to how the Elden Beast and even the Greater Will viewed the both of them. They were simply weapons meant to be wielded as a show of force and bring destruction on those who look to usurp the Golden Order. Radagon, much like Mesmer, is one of my favorite characters in all of Elden Ring. I'm sure one day I'll be able to do a tier list of sorts with details as to why I think each character belongs where they belong. But for right now, I would love to hear about the moments that we don't know. When did Radagon become a part of Marika? Did he and Marika get along? Did she always try to temper his ambitions, or was it simply "don't get in my way and I won't get in yours" sort of thing? I hope one day we'll find out, but for right now, that will be all from me. Remember, go show some love to Fat Brett. If you want more content like this, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, the whole shebang. And I'll see you in the next one.